as you just heard the announcement, this is the last session. And I'll take very little time because I know the traffic outside would normally not be good, and you have many more interesting things to do than to hear me. But I will take the next few minutes to talk to you a little about MMA and the industry. MMA has been active in Indonesia for a long time. But for the last 1 year, we've now established a board. And we've been working in Indonesia to really see what can we do to firstly make sure we can raise the capability levels within the country and see how Indonesia can not only be among the best in the world, but indeed the best in terms of leveraging mobile, leveraging digital. So our first goal is really to build capabilities in the country. We also then have a few other things we want to do. For example, see how we can improve the quality of measurement in the industry. Right now, if you look at measurement, it comes in different pockets. You have different measurement for television, different for digital, different from other parts, other kinds of media. And we are very keen to create a common measurement for the industry, which will be credible and accepted by everyone, whether it's the advertiser or the publisher or the agencies. So we want to create a standard on measurement. But we also want to then look at certain interesting areas which are important and will become even more important in the future. And data-driven marketing, or as I prefer calling it, marketing enabled by data, is something which we believe will be extremely important in the future. We shared a few examples, but you can just think about what we can do when marketers have data for their consumers, and they can then create messages and content which is significantly more relevant for each segment. So therefore, those are some of the things we are trying to do. What we also do every year is to publish a study which is the state of the industry, which is really the mobile ecosystem, what's happening, what are the changes, and so on and so forth. And that's going to be published very soon. What I've been told is that we've got so much data and so much more information coming in that we will take another month before we publish it. But I've had the opportunity to have a look at it. So I've had a chance to see what the initial results are. And I thought I would take the next few minutes to share them with you and really make it worthwhile for you to see what are the changes which are happening in our market, what is interesting, what is useful. Couple of things. When I came to Indonesia a few years back, every time I had a meeting, I told everyone that don't use your phones. Keep your phones away and focus on what we are talking about. And I realized that I failed completely. So therefore, I've reached a stage where I've started using my phone whenever I'm in a meeting to take some notes and hopefully talk through that. So I'm going to make this simple because as I ended the last panel discussion, I said our job is to simplify things. So I'm going to make this simple. I'll share a few facts with you, but I'm sure the facts will not really surprise you because they're in the same direction as we've seen earlier. But I'll try and do something which I try and do at work as well, which is to tell you the top 10 things which you should focus on for today, 5 things which are coming your way in the future, so get prepared for that, and 1 thing be cautious of. So 10 things to do today, 5 things get prepared for, and be careful of 1 thing. But before I go there, let me share some facts with you. What's interesting is the access to internet is now largely through mobile. So can you guess what percentage of people access the internet through their mobile phones now? What percentage? 90? Anyone else? 80? The prizes, huh? If you get the number right. Okay, let me ask the experts at the back. They seem to have all the tough questions. What percentage of people do you think access the internet through their mobile phones in Indonesia? Ranjana is absolutely the smartest person in the room. So 97% of people now access the internet through their mobile phones, which effectively means mobile is equal to digital, digital is equal to mobile. So therefore, first piece of data which seemed quite striking was the fact that 97% of people now access the internet through mobile. The second, which I found quite striking, was Indonesia will become the 3rd largest smartphone market in the world by 2025. Third largest after China and India. So we'll have more smartphone users in Indonesia than the US will have. So therefore, again, a big change happening. Internet, digital is equal to mobile. Mobile, we are amongst the largest markets now in the world. A lot of internet companies, Google, etc., focus a lot on what they call NBU. All of you know NBU? Who's now guessing? So I'm going to do this because otherwise there's no way I'm going to get any engagement from you. So what's NBU? Who's going to tell me NBU? And we've got really good prizes. Okay, NBU is next billion users. So a lot of internet companies focus on where will the next billion users come from. And 90% of them will come from 6 countries. And Indonesia is third out of them. The 6 countries are China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Philippines. So therefore, you will see a lot of new users, smartphone users in Indonesia. Bandwidth and speed continue to be challenges and will remain so in the near future. So therefore, that's something which the government has to think about, the infrastructure has to improve. And advertising revenues are shifting to mobile, and you will find advertising revenues will continue shifting towards mobile in the next few years. So those were some of the facts which I picked up from the State of the Industry report which is going to be issued. But let me now focus on the top 10 things which I would like you to remember if you are in this industry, because it's becoming very important. The first is, video is king. Everything which you see now on the internet in that study is all about video. Hardly anyone's looking at text, hardly anyone's looking at anything else. It's video everywhere. And it's true for young people, thank you very much, but also for older people. So, if I am in my house and I go to my son's room, he's watching a football game on video. And if I go down and I see my mom, she's watching a Hindi movie on her video. And if I go, and find my, gardener outside, he's watching something on video as well. So video is king, and therefore internet, if you want to do well, learn to use video on your phone. So that was one. The second is that it's interesting that, okay, again, another question. If you had very limited money, very limited budget for an advertising campaign, what would you put it on? Which channel will you use? You have very little money, what will you do? Okay, to make it simpler, if you had 2 choices, put it on television or put it on digital, what will you put it on? Digital? Okay, all the people in this room who think it's digital, please raise your hand. Okay, I hope there's nobody from Unilever raising their hand. Because if you have limited money, please put it on television, because given all the changes, despite everything, cost per reach, still television is cheaper. But the conversion to digital is happening much sooner than it was happening in the past. So therefore, the second big learning for today is that both TV and digital will coexist at least for some time. At this point in time, do multi-channel planning and put money where it's cheapest. Probably still, unless the target audience is very different, maybe young boys are now already digital first, but in most cases, television followed by digital. The third thing, which I guess all of you know, Indonesia remains a very, very social market. Which is the #1 app in Indonesia? Sorry? Instagram. WhatsApp. Which is the #2 app in Indonesia? Facebook. #3 app in Indonesia? Instagram. So I'm saying in some ways the top 3 apps are all social apps. based on this study. And therefore, while video is very important and all of the changes that have happened, don't forget Indonesia remains a very, very social market. Fourth is, I think, something which we spoke about a lot. People are beginning to segment, they are beginning to use data, and therefore, please build your expertise, build your capability on leveraging data for marketing. The fifth interesting thing is that more and more of the consumption of internet is happening through the apps. If you would remember some years back, we didn't use apps as much. We went directly online and so on and so forth. But now, bulk of the consumption happens in the app environment, and therefore, how do you market within the app is becoming important. Sixth thing, which was very interesting, is that services are leading the growth of commerce in Indonesia. So effectively, what this means is people are not going and buying products online, but they are using services at a rate which is faster than most of the world. So therefore, ride-hailing, ordering food at home, services like hospitality, travel are becoming bigger in Indonesia than many other markets. So therefore, the penetration of these services is higher in Indonesia than other markets. But relatively, the penetration of commerce is smaller. So we are not buying products as much, but we are using services which the internet gives us. Sorry. The seventh one is that commerce is small, but the path to purchase is getting disrupted. So what does that mean? People may not be buying online, but they are getting advised on what to buy online. Very often people, before they make their purchase, want to know what the product's like. Even when they're in an aisle in a supermarket, they check before they buy. So therefore, internet may not yet be leading to commerce, but path to purchase is definitely being influenced by the net. Eighth, social commerce. All of you know what's social commerce? When someone buys and sells online, when your friend tells you what to buy through a WhatsApp message and so on, is huge in Indonesia. E-commerce is small, but social commerce is almost 3 to 4 times e-commerce is. So therefore, big opportunity for us to look at that and see what's happening. Ninth is something which really made me feel very happy. A lot of us are focused on the millennials, but if you want to really do business, focus on what at least this report calls the silver generation, which is people who were born earlier. Why? Because they spend 4 times the amount of money which the millennials do, and they are getting onto the net and becoming as savvy as the younger people are. So therefore, don't ignore your parents while you do all this. And the last thing, which is my favorite, is while all this is changing, great ads, great content is still being loved by consumers. So you can do 6-second ads to sell stuff, but if you come up with a really compelling piece of advertising, people are willing to watch it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So creativity is still the most important thing, and there is no substitute for it. So those were the 10 things I picked up. I don't know if you'll remember, but I'm going to repeat. Video is king. TV continues to be important. Indonesia is a social market. Data-driven marketing is becoming important. Apps are driving consumption. Services before commerce, but the path to purchase is being disrupted. Social commerce is much bigger than e-commerce. Watch out for the silver generation. They are the ones who will pay your bills in the future. And there is no substitute for creativity. So those were the 10 things which are happening now. I'm now going to switch and talk to you about the 5 things which are coming our way. The next big thing is always lurking on the edges. So if you want to know what's going to come your way, look at the things just outside the mainstream. So the 5 things which will be big in the future, and you can see it in the report. The first is voice. Not many of us think about voice when we think about marketing, but more and more people have devices, voice assistants, whether it's Alexa or the Google Assistant or Siri, and they are using it to get content, and they will use it to get products in the future. So if you don't know how to leverage voice, you better start learning, because it'll be big by the time we are talking in a year or two. So voice is becoming big. The second is commerce is becoming channel fluid. What does that mean? Have you heard of gender fluid? Anyone heard of what's gender fluid? You're gender fluid when you wake up in the morning and decide what gender you are. But yeah, it happens. But there is more and more channel fluidity which is happening, which means that e-commerce players are opening brick and mortar stores, and brick and mortar stores are doing home delivery with apps which they're giving to their consumers. So it's becoming difficult to figure out who's who, but that is the big new trend happening in places like China, and it'll happen here as well. The third is there are a lot of Indians here, but most of them don't know how to speak Bahasa Indonesia. But language is going to be the next big change, and therefore language barriers will disappear because of technology. And you will see Translate, especially on Google's, becoming better and better every day if you use it. And that's something which will come our way very soon. The fourth, subscriptions and D2C business models are becoming viable, and therefore that's something which you should leverage. First-party data becomes extremely important for brand marketers if you want to do subscription models or direct-to-consumer. And the fifth is that the new big thing is 5G. It will be here in a year or two's time, and that changes everything. So the big five for the future, which may not influence your life today, but if you don't build expertise in it, it will definitely influence you tomorrow, is voice, channel fluid, language, subscription and D2C, and 5G. What's the one thing you should all be aware of? Be very, very careful. It's privacy, brand safety, and trust. The entire growth on internet can stall if consumers start worrying about what we are doing with their data, if brands are worried about where their communication shows up, and we lose trust of our consumers. So therefore, the one thing for all of us to watch out, especially marketers, is to make sure privacy concerns are taken care of, and we take care of brand safety, brand trust. So that was my quick summary of a very long report. 10 things for you to remember for what you do today, 5 things to watch out for in the future, and 1 thing to be very, very careful of. That's all I wanted to cover. Thank you very much for your support for MMA, and I wish you will continue to support us in the future. Thank you.